Hello and welcome to another episode of the DRS Zone podcast. My name is Ed Wyatt, and it's a welcome back from a few days at camp where he was walking around in the woods, tracking dangerous animals, all kinds of stuff. It's my co-host and 14-year-old son and media superstar. More on that in a little bit. Sam Wyatt, welcome back.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me back. I was at camp. I'm back now. I'm here to talk about the Australian Grand Prix.
Well, yeah, we did a little bit of a really quick one. I managed to get you in the car and stick a mic in your face and, and get a few
You
first
did.
first opinions. But in all actuality, we haven't really had too much time to discuss the race. What were some of your takeaways? It was kind of a whirlwind Sunday where we saw the race and then headed home and then took you off to camp on Monday. But what's kind of stuck with you after you've kind of had a few days to think about it?
Yeah, well, I didn't really get much technology or internet reception up at camp, so I haven't really been able to check the result, but things that stuck with me, obviously, Red Bull, incredible. Max Verstappen wins. The three red flags, the Alpines crash,
Mm.
all of the DNF, Sainz's penalty, Leclerc, the drama, George Russell's engine blowing up. There's so many things. The list goes on and on and on.
It was a very unique race, wasn't it? There was the carnage at various times. You mentioned the red flags. And then, ironically, after all that stuff, Red Bull and Verstappen end up winning it anyway. So
Yeah.
that was kind of the great irony of it, I think, after all that stuff.
Yeah, I think Verstappen said on the radio, like, well, we got there in the end or something.
That was a great line.
We got the victory. It took a while.
Yes, exactly. So
Yeah.
after that race, Red Bull now on 123 points, which is 58 points ahead of second place Aston Martin. They're on 65. Mercedes on,
Aston
I
Martin.
know, and Mercedes on 56, and your Ferrari team way back and forth on just 26 points. So not a great position for Ferrari. Driver standings, Max has a 15-point lead on Checo now. Fernando is in third, 9 points behind Perez. Lewis Hamilton in fourth, and Carlos Sainz is in fifth. Long way to go, but things not looking great for Mercedes. I'm sorry, for Ferrari and Leclerc. We'll get to that in a minute. And
One
before,
thing I will
yeah,
say, just
yes.
quickly, one thing that I am very impressed with, and a couple years ago, this was unthinkable. We had drivers and teams even with no points throughout the whole year. May I just say, it is race three. Every team has scored a point, and only two drivers are yet to score a point, and that is Logan Sargent and Nick De Vries. That is very impressive. Three races, 18 drivers and 10
Mm,
teams already scoring at least 1 point. Very impressive from F1, and they've made a big improvement as to what it was. Remember, Haas' highest finish was like
yes.
15th that year.
Yeah.
Very good for the sport.
That's a really good point. In fact, you were speaking with my dad on a FaceTime chat today, and he asked you what teams were the worst, and you had that really good answer, which you sort of just said there, that there's no clear cut worst team, that they're all pretty competitive down towards the bottom. Once you get out of that top, say three or four
Four, or maybe even
behind Red
five.
Bull, yeah, and then it gets very, very competitive at the end.
Yeah.
We are going to talk some winners and losers in a second, but I think we need to talk a little bit about our personal appearances at track, because this is the one Grand Prix we get to go to. We briefly touched on this. The crowd, unbelievable. You could just really tell. Last year there were a lot of people. This year there were even more.
Yeah, what was it, 400 something thousand throughout the
Yes.
whole weekend. As you said, you could just tell walking everywhere was people everywhere, like you're getting pushed to the side in lines. Incredible, really. The crowds, so many people showing up, and it is good for the sport. It's great to have these crowds, but wow, it's a lot of people. And even on the other side of the track, which is supposed to be, say, a relaxing zone or
Mm,
whatever you call it, the family zone, I think it's called. There are millions of people there. It feels like people next to each other, all bunched in. It's pretty incredible that everywhere you go, there are lines incredibly long. The tunnel to get the bridge across the track
Yes.
lined up for maybe 100 meters. They need more than one bridge, but wow, wow, incredible.
Yeah, I think they'll have to look at a couple of those things. And by and large, they do it really, really well. But yeah, need a few more big
Yeah.
screens. Need a little bit. Probably do need another bridge across the track. If you haven't been there, that's how you get to the center, the infield, if you will, of the track from to some of the stands and some of the activities. So that is a little bit difficult. The F2 and F3 for me added a whole different dimension. I think last year we had a lot of sort of downtime, if you will.
Sitting around waiting for the F1.
Correct. Yeah. This year with the F2 and the F3, the qualifying, the sprint race, the actual race really added a
Yeah.
lot. Really added a
Yeah,
lot.
I really enjoyed it. You want to go in. Like last year, you go in at 9 o'clock, you enjoy the atmosphere on the first day, kind of suss it out. Then the next couple of days, you don't really need to go in there until say midday when the F1 starts. This time I'm chomping at the bit to get in there at 8:30 when the gates open
Yeah.
because you got F2, you got F3, and then into the F1. It's great for the fans. And one thing I will say when I think you were doing something and mum was going to get some food, I was standing out near this big screen watching the F2 race, and there were probably 500 people all there watching it. And like when someone went off, they'd go, "Oh, it was really interesting to see how many people just enjoy racing, not just the F1." And I think people really enjoy the F2 and the F3, and there's a lot of access for it as well. So I think
Yes.
I think it was great for the Australian Grand Prix.
Yeah, for those who don't know, the F1 pits and paddock areas are off limits unless you have a special pass or a part of the team. Supercars are a little more open. You can walk through and see the teams and the cars and the drivers. They did the same thing with F2 and F3, so you could stroll over and see the drivers. I mean, you couldn't go in and pick up a wrench and fix to put a tire on, but you actually could stroll through there and see the teams and the cars and the drivers. We were pretty fortunate, as we said on the earlier podcast, that we had a connection to Hugh Barter, the Aussie driver in F3, and we're able to get into his little garage and have a look around, which was very, very cool.
Yeah,
And
that
we are
was
very
really cool.
fortunate to do that. But yeah, I think the F2 and the F3 have added a whole different dimension, which really is great. Without being too self-promoting, it was a big weekend for you with some of your appearances on television, which was great.
Yeah.
To be on a morning show on Friday and then a post-race show on Sunday. How did it feel? Were you a bit nervous this year? You seemed actually a little more composed, I thought.
I was pretty nervous for the Studio 10 one just because it was live. I've never done live
Yeah, true.
before, and it's pretty scary. It's a whole different beast to pre-recorded. You mess up, that's okay. We'll ask it again. Like in this podcast, if I say something wrong, I can edit it out. There, it's live. There's nothing you can do if you mess up. If you mess up, you mess up, and people see it. So that was a little daunting,
Yep.
but I think it went all right. The other interviews, once again, the project was great. Very thankful to be on there. But
Yep.
but yeah, the live TV is fairly daunting.
Absolutely right. I thought you did really well. The other good thing that we got to do was thanks to our good friend Cameron Vandendungen, who's the on-track announcer. He and Greg Rust invited us into, and Matt Nolte as well, invited us into the booth to watch them call the practice session on Saturday for the F1 while that broadcast went out to radio and track TV and things like that. Invited us in, which is great. You had a headset on, you could listen. And then
Yeah.
then all of a sudden they asked you some questions, and you were analyzing practice sessions on track TV.
Yeah, it was really cool. I'm a big fan of the access they have in there. They have these things, micro sectors. There's probably
Yes.
8 sectors inside a sector, and it really shows you if, like, say it pops up green, and like in Q3, say the top three have been set, and you want to see who's fourth, fifth, sixth, and say Perez and Leclerc both go green, 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 green. and you're like, oh, who's going to be ahead? In here, you can see, oh, in that first sector, Perez was purple, 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 green, 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 where Leclerc was yellow, 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 green, green, green. So it gives you a really good read. And I do love how they'll be watching the sectors, and one of them will pop up purple, like for Piastri, and everyone will hype it up, and that was really cool. But
Yeah.
yeah, great access. It
It,
was really cool.
it was very, very, very entertaining, and we don't take those things for granted, and we are very thankful that people allow us to do that. Let's look at some winners and losers from the Australian Grand Prix, and I've written a few down. You may have a few in your head. We'll start with winners. We'll start with a positive. My first winner, Lewis Hamilton. Obviously, finishing
Yes.
second, had a great weekend. Mercedes been up and down this year, but really a solid effort from him, and he was ecstatic after the race.
Yes, I can imagine. P2 for him. His Mercedes teammate did not do as well, got unlucky with the engine. But yeah, third on the grid to convert it to second in the race. Very, very strong result from him. I did think he could actually win the race
Mm.
in that second red flag, and there was the restart. Sadly, he couldn't get past Max, and there was no more racing, unfortunately, because of crashes of, well, Ocon,
Yeah.
Gasly, De Vries. The list goes on, really.
The list
Um,
does go on.
but no, I think it's really strong, and it shows that Lewis Hamilton is not washed. He is not
Yeah.
done. Don't you worry. He is still very much a competitor, and I do think and I do hope he can win a race this season.
Yeah, it'd be great, wouldn't it? You got a winner?
I do have a winner, Oscar Piastri and his McLaren teammate Lando Norris.
Very good.
Very strong showing from McLaren. Double points. They did get lucky with the red flag.
Yes, indeed.
But F1 might be up to luck sometimes, and they took advantage of that. And Piastri's first points in Formula One, he achieves them at his home Grand Prix. Great for him. And Norris also in there. I was making fun of my friend. Me and my friend who are Ferrari fans were making fun of my McLaren fan friend when they got knocked out in Q2. Although he one upped us in the race. McLaren way better than Ferrari, but no, really strong result for them.
Yep, agreed. And Piastri, as you said, in front of the home crowd, great way to start off his career as an F1 driver. I've got one
Definitely.
here for you. This is your man, Arthur Leclerc, first podium in the F2s.
Fourth and third, what a result. But yes, that was the race where everyone was watching the monitor. Geez, I don't even remember. It was such a chaotic race, but there was some drama, some engine failures, a bunch of safety cars, and he was running, I think, fourth most of the race. And then he pitted early, and then he got unlucky with a safety car, and so he was in about ninth. He had to make his way up. I think he was sitting in sixth behind. I know Vesti was leading. Then Vesti had to pit because he hadn't pitted yet, but he got to pit under a safety car because third and fourth crashed out on the restart before it even went green. So he got a free pit stop. So Leclerc moved up to, I think, a third, and then Vesti was chasing him down on the last lap, but Leclerc held on for a podium, and I got to see him in person jumping out of his car after the podium.
Indeed, and a much better result than his brother, that's for sure.
Yes,
Other
much
winners, who
better.
you got?
I've got Nico Hulkenberg.
Mm, yeah,
It's this one's up for debate. I think he is a winner, although there was a part where he may have been a loser. He could have been on the podium, but
true.
P7 still for the Hulk is very good in what is his third race back in Formula One.
And
Really strong result from
he's been
Haas.
stronger than Magnussen.
He's been way stronger than
Yeah.
Magnussen. Agreed, 100%. But how crazy would it be? He would have been third. He was in fourth at the restart with the whole drama where they have to go back to a lap, which Alonso called on the radio incredibly.
Yes.
Alonso's the only guy who could do that. Or Sebastian Vettel. I feel like he would do that. But
Yeah.
Hulkenberg, fourth, Sainz gets the penalty. Hulk takes his first podium in F1. That would have been great. But still, P7 for Gunter, very strong. I think Haas will
Yep.
be very happy for that. And I think Haas fans will be happy with that too.
Well, speaking of Haas fans, that's another one of my winners. If you're a Haas fan, like I was last year, there was no merchandise at the track. There was some merchandise this year. It wasn't a lot.
I saw it. I
They had a
saw merch in
couple
the
of shop,
store.
yes,
We were looking
shirts.
for it, and then I saw it in the corner.
Yes, you spotted it.
And we made
Sweatshirts,
friends with a guy with a baseball Magnuson shirt.
beautiful
That was
shirt.
very nice.
Yeah, that
It
was a
was like a,
great
a
shirt.
baseball kind of shirt, had the number 20 on the back. That was a very nice shirt. I would buy that.
very slow start, but Haas are getting up to the rest of the crew in terms of merchandise. So maybe next year they'll have even a few hats. I didn't see any hats. I just saw shirts.
I did not see hats.
Yeah.
I saw a bunch of Gunter shirts. I saw two people with Gotifi shirts. It said Gotifi, and it had the picture of him with the
Oh,
shadow of him as a goat.
dear, oh
Two
dear.
people, two legends, might
Yeah.
I say. I did see that when we were rushing to get to a screen to see how we can watch the end of this race. I was like stressing out, and then I saw the Gotifi, and that put a smile on my face.
There you go. All right. That's all I've got for winners. Obviously, there are a million more, Red Bull, et cetera, et cetera. But we can't list them all. Let's go to losers. Losers. I'm going to start with Williams.
Oh,
I'm going to
your new
start
team that
with
you love.
Williams. Albon
Yeah,
doing
double
well,
DNF.
crashed out.
That was
Sargent
so. I felt
crashed.
so bad for
So did I.
Albon.
So did I. He's driving a
Yeah,
really good
he
race.
was he was in sixth,
Yeah, I
and then he
know.
caused the first red flag. That did change the race.
He certainly
And
did.
did
And then
yeah.
Sargent at the end with that foolish collision as well, which he later apologized for. But just, Williams came in with a high profile, potential of a pretty good car. They had some pop up events in the city, Q&A with Albon, and then later with
People
Sargent.
love him.
Yeah, people were really
People love
getting
him.
around
I
him.
love him. I'm really liking Williams this season. But yeah, really disappointing for them considering they did have the pace. Alex Albon especially.
Agreed.
2-3,
Agreed.
sixth place
Yep.
before he crashed. That's a bummer for them. But did you see the replay of Nico Hulkenberg when he went past that Williams car and he couldn't see anything?
Yes,
That was very scary.
it absolutely
And did you see
was.
that replay where Lewis Hamilton on the safety car restart slowed down and then all those cars slowed down and then all the cars were going in the gravel? Did you see that?
I did see that.
How crazy was that?
There were the race was full of moments like that.
Yeah, there's a
Um,
million moments where you'd be like, "Oh yeah, that
uh,
happened."
absolutely. Got a loser for me?
I do have a loser. This is a bit funny. Alpine.
Oh,
Oh my gosh.
Alpine late in the race.
Yeah, you're running what? Fourth and like eighth. It was incredible. Gasly was sitting up there in fourth
Mm.
or fifth, keeping pace with Carlos Sainz the whole race. And then the restart, Gasly dropped maybe a couple of places, and then they tangle. And once again, the curse of Esteban Ocon in a pink car colliding with his teammate, as we saw in Belgium in 2017, we've seen Azerbaijan and Singapore in 2018, and now we have Australia in 2023. What is going on? And we saw a bit of argy-bargy with him and Alonso in a pink car in 2022 in Saudi Arabia. That is a curse in F1, I think.
Maybe they need to change that livery back, but that was just we had a red flag, a restart, and then bang, that whole thing happens. It was just madness. The two of them, Gasly taking out Ocon, however you want to say it, but
The debris when they
oh,
went into the wall, that was
everywhere,
astonishing.
shattered everywhere.
100% it had to be a red flag.
Yeah, I agree. It was very,
It shattered all across the
yeah,
car.
absolutely
Yeah.
right. I'm gonna let you do this next loser. I wrote it down, but it would only be fitting that you do it.
Yep.
Fire away.
I'm gonna say Ferrari. I mean, disaster.
It was.
Do I need to talk about this? I don't want to
You
talk
don't really
about
need
this.
to. No, I mean Leclerc going
Leclerc
off.
turn
Yeah.
three,
Yep.
goes off and was hit by Stroll, but you can't blame Stroll for that.
Yeah.
Racing incident.
Yep. They called it a racing incident. Sainz put
And
up a
then
pretty good
Sainz,
fight.
that is
Yep.
a joke. And I'm gonna go on a rant here. So Carlos Sainz gets a 5-second time penalty. This is rubbish. He's running third. He hits Alonso and he goes ahead and he gets the 5 seconds and he drops out of the points. And then they just reinstate the results and then Alonso's back on the podium. Like, what? It's too harsh. It's way too harsh. And I know Carlos Sainz would have got on the podium and Alonso would have lost it. But one thing I will say is didn't they go back to the starting grid?
Mm.
So Carlos Sainz would have been fourth and Alonso would have been third. So Sainz is behind Alonso. They basically erase that whole lap and they still give Sainz the penalty.
Yeah.
It's so stupid. Like, if you're going to give Sainz the penalty, you got to give Hulkenberg third, Tsunoda fourth, whatever that order was. You got to give that. You can't reinstate it and give signs. It's just makes no sense. I
Uh,
don't know how they give that out.
it was very confusing, and I think well, Ferrari tried to protest it. It didn't
Good on
result in
them.
that. Haas tried to protest as well. But look, they're going to have some questions, irrespective of that. Let's just call that bad luck if you want. Sainz did pretty well, but Leclerc is off to a terrible start when you think about last year where he was at this point. He's really been a really tough start
Yeah. This
for
time
him.
last year, I was calling he's already the
Yeah,
champion.
yeah,
This time
exactly.
this year, I've always said we should focus on 2024.
That's exactly right. How it's changed a year later.
How it has changed.
Controversial one for me, loser. I'm going to say Checo Perez. Now, he finished well. He won the driver of the day. I get it. But his qualifying and his practice were a disaster, and that kept him from competing for the win. I think
Who cares? He's fifth. He
he's,
came from 20th to
I
fifth.
agree.
He's
I
the
agree.
driver of the day.
I
Yes, he
agree.
messed up. Everyone messes up. The fact that he came from 20th to fifth, it goes unnoticed. And Sergio Perez deserved driver of the day. It was a great drive from him. And with all the
I
drama,
agree.
it went unnoticed. And we've got to mention this. We can't just say, oh, Perez, oh, bad, 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 bad. He finished fifth. He did well. He was up, what, 14 places.
He did a great job. I think in the overall scheme of things, he's in it. This
You could
weekend
say
didn't do him any favors.
Perez on Friday and Saturday is a loser.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. And I think in the bigger
Especially
picture,
Saturday.
yeah, but he was a great drive. So I get that it was a controversial one. Another loser for me, Australian Grand Prix security. The scenes of people on the track while cars are still out there, people climbing the fence, people throwing bottles at those people on the fence, guys trying to steal little timing devices, just like they've got to solve that because that's the kind of thing, as weird as this sounds, Sam, you could lose a Grand Prix over that. As weird as that sounds, the FIA steps in, there's a
Yeah.
security issue. You could
And it's
absolutely
back in
lose a race.
Adelaide in a year.
Well, yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think that's going to happen. But yeah,
I saw
it's
it.
could be
I
trouble.
was I was walking out and I saw the security guard letting people through the fence and everyone was on the track.
He
They
normally
were on the
remember,
track
yeah. So remember last
and the
year
cars were going by.
we got to do that last year. You do it at the end of the race, but because this race was
Yeah.
so confusing, I
Yeah,
think
because
maybe
they
they,
forgot that it
yeah,
was a full lap they still had to do. So
yeah,
when they came in on the final lap, they were all going slow under the safety car.
yep,
After that, the cars went by. The cars
yep,
were probably around turn 1, and down at turn 10, a bunch of people ran on the track.
yeah.
Down at turn 10, and the cars are still on the track.
Very, very dangerous. So they're gonna have to get that sorted, and I think they will. So
Yeah.
hopefully they do. But yeah, that was not great.
I have one
Um,
more. I have one
yeah,
more.
I was
Not
just gonna ask you.
necessarily a
Yep,
loser or a loser and not a long thing. Just to mention, as we said, things you forget about in this race. And we had a long conversation about Haas.
yep.
What on earth happened with that tire and Kevin
Mm,
Magnussen?
great point.
That was one of the strangest
Yeah.
crashes I've
Yes.
ever seen. He barely touched it, and the wheel just went flying off into the air and bounced across the track. That
And
that was quite extraordinary.
it
I'm
was, and
surprised that was a red flag.
we've seen tragic incidents with that. So very,
I
very
know, but
lucky
the
nothing
tire was
happened.
on the track,
Yeah, yeah,
and
I
with the
do.
tether,
Mm,
it was on the track,
yeah,
and it could have been avoided. And Magnussen was like 20 meters down the road,
yeah,
on off to one side. I think they could have easily kept that under a safety car.
yeah. I think you might be
Although
right with
I
that one,
think it
but
was once again one of those cases where, because what was it? 2 laps to go, maybe 3 laps to
mm,
go. If they safety car, they finish under a safety car, and they don't want
yes,
that. So
that's
they
a
red
very good
flag
point.
so they can get more racing.
Yeah,
But then what happened from there, huh?
yeah. Well, it's we're getting into this area, and this will lead into our last thing that we're going to talk about today. We're getting into this area of race versus entertainment, sport versus entertainment. You want to keep it going. You don't want to finish under a safety car, that kind of thing. We saw that in Abu Dhabi, of course, with Hamilton and Verstappen. Azerbaijan Grand Prix is the next one up in a few weeks, and they've completely changed the
Not
way,
yet. It
or
looks
it
like they'll
looks like
change
they're
it.
going to completely change the weekend to where we have a practice and a race qualifying on Friday. Then we have a standalone sprint qualifying and sprint race for points. They don't affect the grid. And then on Sunday, the race, which is really, really interesting.
I will say two things. I think this is a bad idea, and I hope they don't do this every week. One thing I will say, I'm very excited to see two qualifying,
Yes.
two races at
Yes.
a track where drama is at every corner. I'm very excited to see that.
I'll give you that.
On a track where you could go off at literally any one of the corners. I think this is going to be a very exciting weekend. I'm
Mm,
very excited. Although I hope this doesn't start happening every weekend. I think maybe have maybe one of these each year if you need to have one of them. But my fear is go 5 years down the future and every race weekend is
right.
this.
Yeah, which is
That's
what,
not what
yeah,
we want. You
no,
can't have 10 qualifyings at Monaco. There's someone's going to crash. There's going to be a red flag, and you're just not going to be able to finish it in time. This does not suit every track. It
no.
arguably doesn't suit Baku, but it's going to be entertaining, so I'm excited for it. But it arguably, this should not be trialed out on a straight circuit, I don't think.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I agree with you. I'm not a massive fan of the sprint race, I'll be honest with you, but I don't like sprint race as a qualifying. So I think I like this a little bit better as a standalone.
Yes,
I'm
I
still
agree.
not, I still don't love it. I'll be honest with you. I'm more of a purist when it comes to this, but I get what they're trying to do. The practice sessions aren't the most entertaining for the fans, it's more for the engineers and the teams. I get that,
Yeah.
but I'm not
But
quite sure
you
this is the solution. We'll
Yeah,
see.
you don't have fans without the engineers and the teams and the
True.
everything.
Yep.
So
No, you're absolutely right.
yeah,
Now we'll do,
I'm
go
in
ahead.
two minds.
Yeah,
I'm
I
in two
agree.
minds
Yep.
about it.
Yep. It'll be worth looking at though.
Yeah,
We'll
and it
do
hasn't been
another.
approved yet.
No, it hasn't. We'll do another podcast where we preview Baku and talk about some of the past races there and things like that. But for now, that's kind of a wrap of the Australian Grand Prix. Is there anything else we've missed? I mean, like I said, it was a
No.
whirlwind for you. We went right from the end of the race, getting home around 8 o'clock, and then got up in the morning and drove you to
Yeah,
your camp.
pretty crazy.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy, but by and large, it was a pretty good Australian Grand Prix, unless you are like you, a hardcore Ferrari fan. But I think you
I
can now,
enjoyed the Grand
yeah,
Prix.
it was a really, really good race.
Yeah, I
This has
enjoyed the
been
weekend.
the DRS Zone podcast. My name is Ed White. His name is Sam White. And we will see you next time. You can find this anywhere you get your podcasts. And we will see you very soon for a preview of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. See you next time.